let's say I'm, obviously I am in a band, but let's say I'm in a band and I'm ready to um, really start doing exactly what you're talking about. I want to record all of my stuff there with you, and then I want to live stream all of that stuff. Like, what does that look like? How? Because when I'm thinking about all that stuff, like I'm thinking it's going to take forever.
Right.
Like it's so involved. Like, what does that really look like?
And it feels a little overwhelming at the beginning of the
Oh
project
yeah.
because there's just so much to do. There's so many things, and taking that first step sometimes is the hard part.
Yes.
Um, and so, with bands, it depends on my involvement in a project. If I'm producing an artist, so I'm then very involved in the whole project, not just the recording, mixing, and mastering. But if I take on a role as a producer, my goal is to make sure that I'm helping the band or the artist with every aspect of that recording, so that they have project management, they have organization, they have motivation, they have
For
the
sure.
ability to take that first step and not feel overwhelmed. And kind of, as a producer, you're basically holding the hand of the artist and guiding them, and making
Mhm.
sure that you basically bring out the best version of themselves, so that when the project's finished, they're really proud of what came out of that. And you do it within their budget, within their time frame, and to the expectations or beyond the expectations that they had.
Yes.
And so, to answer your question, it can look a number of different ways, because there's no right or wrong way. There's a number of ways you can do this. With some bands, I've started by saying, hey, just set up a recorder during rehearsal, record me the songs that are on the short list, and then send them to me, and let's start there, and let's listen through the songs and start to think about, do we need to tweak any of the songs? Are they ready to go? Which ones are ready to go? um, just to get a feel for the songs, but more importantly, to see where the band or the artist is at in terms of the song development. Is it ready? Because you don't want a band to come into the studio until they're 100% ready, because you don't want them to spend a lot of money, because studio time's not cheap.
Sure
So,
not. Yep.
the golden rule of recording is always be ready when you step into the studio. Have all of your songs, ready to go. Every person in the band should know their parts, be able to play them flawlessly. So when you come in, you can knock them in first or second take and get it done, efficiently.
Mhm.
Um, so that's certainly an important aspect of it. But the other thing I mentioned, that I had two core concepts when I was kind of thinking through the vision for this space, based on what I've learned from previous studios and some of my previous experiences as a musician and playing in bands. The other one is really that I feel like musicians, we can do more DIY than we actually do. And I think this is
Mhm.
becoming more and more important, but it's also, in the last 10 years, as technology again has evolved, it's become more and more feasible. You know, my phone that I carry around in my pocket has 1,000 times the ability to record my album than I did, when I was playing in a band, when I was 17. I used to record on
Yes.
little 4-track tape recorders, and I thought it was awesome that I could record my whole band and like create tapes and send them off to people. But now I have a recording studio that I carry around in my pocket. Essentially, everyone's got
Yes.
GarageBand or something that they can. So, you know, the only thing that seems a little prohibitive to that is a lot of studios will say, no, if you're going to record an album, if you're going to be professional, you got to come in and you got to track everything in here. That stuff that you did there on your phone, that's cute and everything, but that's pre-production. When you come into
Yeah.
the studio, we're going to start over from scratch. I've had artists share with me pre-production material, stuff that they've recorded on their phone. They're like, "Oh yeah, I just want to, redo these songs," and I'm like, "Why do you want to redo that? You captured something amazing that I don't think we'll be able to do better. I can mix it and master it and make it sound amazing, but the performance, what you got there in that performance, we won't be able to do better because you were in the zone, you were in your
Yeah.
bedroom or wherever you were, and you were feeling it. So why
Yeah.
would we try and redo that?" I had an artist that I worked with once, and everything she had tracked was on her iPhone. She didn't even have a microphone. She used to set up her iPhone on her piano And somehow she was so good at placing the microphone at just the right spot to get the balance between the vocal and the piano, and the same when she would do it with the guitar, that she got a really good blend there. And we would go track some, some overdubs and things. But the original performance was what was on her album, because
Wow.
she had captured the mood. And similarly, I've had other bands where they've done a more elaborate recording. Perhaps they have their own, like, Pro Tools rig or something, where they say, hey, let's try and do it ourselves, and they'll record everything at home, and then they try to mix it and it sounds awful. And it's not
That's the trouble.
and it's not for want of trying, but there's just a couple of things they're lacking. Either their techniques when it came to recording weren't good, or they're, more often than not, it's the mixing where it suffers, because either they try to mix it themselves and they've spent so much time on the recording part that they've kind of they've lost perspective when it comes to mixing. They've heard it so many times that they need a fresh set of ears. Same with the mastering too. Or sometimes they just don't know how to fix it. If they had a really nasty sounding signal going in, or they didn't, get the right mic placement, maybe the vocal or the guitar signal or the drums sound pretty bad, and they don't have the tools or the ability to fix it. But I've had plenty of projects where people have sent me stuff and they're like, can you do anything with this? And we've made it sound amazing,
Yeah.
and this is stuff that people have recorded at home in their basement, so that was the other core concept that I built around. One was, leveraging technology to do more of the video streaming and bring fans to feel more included in the process. But the other one was, rather than telling bands, no, you can't DIY, you've got to come in here and do it, encourage people to DIY as much as they can so that they can save their money, because we don't have a lot of money as musicians. Have them save that money so that they can use it for better good. They can use it to create more of their art. They can use it to create more content. They can use it to spend on the mixing and mastering, where they'll get more bang for their buck, so they have a more professional sounding product. So part of that is like coaching people on recording at home, like, helping them out. Like, this is the microphone you should buy. This is how to, set up the microphone so that you're going to get a good signal to noise ratio. Give them some basic tools so that they can do as much as they can on their own, and just do the stuff here in a studio that they can't do at home. So like the really loud stuff, drums, or, stuff that requires on a really good acoustically treated room. Do that here, do the mixing here, the mastering here, but learn as much as you can and do as much as you can solo. So I know I've answered that in a very long way, but the answer to your question is there's plenty of ways that you can go about it. And I think it varies from artist to artist and band to band, depending on their abilities and how much they want to be involved, and what their budget is. But I always try to work with people on their budget and say, let's just do whatever we got to do to give you an amazing sounding product for the budget that you have. And I've done I've done recordings for bands that we've knocked out in a weekend, and they've walked out of here absolutely blown away. Like, I thought I was coming in to record a demo, because we said we're going to do it in a weekend, and this is so much more than a demo. Like, this is ready to be played on the radio. And it as a producer, that comes down to creating that environment where people feel comfortable and creative, and a positive place where people come in and they're excited, and it builds in the room. You sense it. People come into a recording studio excited always, because it's such a fun place to go. When you're an artist, it's it's like the place to go. And so you just build on that, and as the recording session evolves, magic will happen if you're creating, as a producer, that right environment, and you're nurturing that environment, making people feel comfortable, and making people feel valued, and that positivity spreads, and you end up with these amazing recordings.
Yeah, I mean, and that also allows you, by encouraging people to do more DIY, that also allows you to work with more artists.
Right.
Because, as exclusive as some people like to be, I think that's because people like to have it may also be that some people are not as confident in their skills, that they want to be able to control every piece, you know, every aspect of what's going in because they have a very set process.
Right.
But it's very clear to me that you have a very clear grasp on like the art portion of it and are very aware of how to, you know, like you as an artist might look at something and you're like, this is absolute garbage. I hate it. But, you know, I think you're able to look at it and really see, the diamond in the rough, if we want to say that,
Absolutely.
and be able to make it into something that the artist can now look at and be like, that was way better than I thought it was.
You know, there's I was never aware of this guy, but my wife introduced me to an American painter that used to be on, I think, PBS, called Bob Ross.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Oh yeah, we love him.
so I would always say to, I didn't grow up with him because I get more of an American thing. We had our own
Yeah.
Bob Ross in England, but that's a whole nother story. But I would always say to artists that I've worked with, and I shared it so many times with my wife, that, sometimes someone will bring you something and it's more about just picking the right frame for the painting, right?
Yeah.
And even sometimes when a band, or even myself as a musician, when you're performing with other bands, particularly if you're improvising or writing a song, sometimes the thing that was a mistake actually ends up being the best part of the song because you can turn it into a feature. It was
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to happen because you didn't plan for that to happen. You played a note that didn't properly fit, but then you're like, that's actually the most beautiful part of the song. Let's work with that and pivot around that. And I remember, I shared that so many times with my wife when we'd be, working on records. She wouldn't see me for a couple of weeks, and then I'd say, hey, here's what I've been working on for the last couple of weeks, and I would share these stories. And she said, there's this guy called Bob Ross, and she ended up buying me a T-shirt for my birthday that says, "No mistakes, just happy accidents."
Yes.
And then I went and watched the documentary on this guy, and I was like, we are like kindred spirits.
You
Because
absolutely are. Yes, you
the
guys have the
way
same energy.
the way he sees the artistic process is the same way I see it. It's about working with what you have and turning that, like you said, the diamond, in the rough. But there's nothing rough about it. Every piece of art is it comes into the world the way it's supposed to come into the world. And
Mm-hmm.
as a producer, or however I'm touching the project, a mixer or a mastering engineer, whatever it is, my job isn't to change it. My job isn't to judge it and say this is wrong or it should be like this. My job is to see through the artist's vision to completion in the best possible light that I can, by picking the right frame, the right lighting, so that when it's up in its gallery, people can appreciate it for what it is. And so
Yes.
that was why when I was working with Kristen Bobian and she brought me the iPhone recordings, I didn't say it's awful, we got to redo it, the acoustics are all wrong, and I can hear the floorboards creaking, I hear your dog barking in the background.
Right.
She said that stuff to me, and I said, who cares? Let them hear the dog barking in the background. It's real, and people
Yes.
will love that it's real, and people will connect with it because it's real, because that's who you are as an artist. I had worked with her enough by that point that I knew who she was as a person. I said, this is who you are. Let it be as it is. We don't have to do this like, fancy, crazy recording. Let them be stripped down recordings with just you and the piano, you and the acoustic guitar. Maybe in the second record, then you do the full band thing. But for now, you've got these amazing sounding recordings. Let's work with those.